Then yes, are we live? All right, I will call to order the special meeting of the Mayor and Board of Aldermen for Tuesday, January the 12th. And I do not have any changes to the agenda. Ashley doesn't either. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda? So moved. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, before we just have one agenda item today, and that's to discuss and consider a COVID-19 vaccine policy for city employees. We are, through the clinic that we have contracted with, going to be able to get the vaccinations for our frontline employees and our first responders and others. So we have been talking about Braxton, and Bart and Kara and I have gone round and round and have pulled in different department heads as we've had this discussion. And so before you, I'm gonna kind of let Braxton walk through it with everybody, but Braxton, you have to come to the microphone so they can hear you online. The bottom line is there is no perfect solution. We have detailed what the different solutions are and have a recommendation, but none of these solutions are without, you can poke holes in all of them or find pros and cons with all. But I'm gonna let Braxton kind of go through the menu with you.
As the mayor said, there's obviously no perfect choices. The first one is mandatory vaccinations for all employees. And obviously there's a lot of drawbacks there, and there would be reasonable accommodations and all those things would have to work through, but that would be the first option, be everyone that works for the city be required to get a vaccination. The second one would be vaccination by choice. So if employees choose not to be vaccinated when vaccinations are available, he or she will be required to use their accrued leave to cover days required for quarantine as required by the CDC. If the employee chooses to be vaccinated, administrative leave will be granted for any required quarantine as required by the CDC. So in this situation, just like it says, if you get vaccinated and are required to quarantine, or if you just so happen to test positive, the city will still allow you to be off on administrative leave for 14 days. If you refuse, once the vaccination is widely available to take the vaccination, you will be required to use your sick leave under any such circumstance. The third option would be vaccination by choice of the employee. Remove administrative sick leave from every employee. If an employee becomes positive or required to quarantine, they must use their accrued time. And then the fourth one will be continue current city policy of issuing administrative sick leave to expose positive employees with or without vaccination following CDC guidelines. So that's exactly what we're doing now. We're following CDC guidelines and issuing sick leave when we determine they need to be at home. And then the last option is the school board option. And this is just giving all employees additional amount of sick leave to cover them through the end of the semester. And I'm sure Poe knows a good bit more about this. Paul, I believe, actually wrote this policy for the school district.
Although I don't think it was focused on the vaccination, it was just focused on the continuing sick leave issue through COVID.
That's correct. That's correct.
That's correct. We have analyzed amongst ourselves and with other department heads, and I've called mayors of other towns and asked, how they are doing it. I am personally very opposed to mandatory vaccinations for all employees. I think our employees should decide for themselves whether or not they would like to have a vaccination. I've talked to other mayors who have said that they plan to require it for all of their employees because they're dealing with the public and feel like they should protect the public. I feel like that is each employee's, certainly their personal desire, but I do think that number two fairly, addresses that. If you choose not to get the vaccination, that's fine, but it'll be, you'll have to utilize your own sick days when or if you become ill. And no different than if you had the flu or stomach virus or anything else. Now, we have talked about the challenges that presents, because if there is an employee that does not have enough sick leave time or off days and knows they would have to be on unpaid leave, are we making it too tempting for them to just not get tested and to not tell anyone that they have COVID? I think certainly that will be an issue. I think we would be naive to think that was not going on right now. I mean, you know, I think that is going to be a constant problem with every kind of sickness, with people that don't have enough sick days and, you know, quite frankly, can't afford the time off. And so that to me is the biggest negative of that choice, is that we will have employees that will certainly come to work sick, but I believe that it is the most fair of these choices. But I'm certainly willing for y'all to poke holes in that, or, yes, Pope?
Can I just ask a question, and I should know this, but I don't. Pre-COVID, we required you to take sick leave when you were sick, right?
Correct.
To utilize your sick leave. So really, what that would be, your second option, would be a return to pre-COVID policy as people around the choosers not to vaccine are vaccinated.
Well,
vaccinated.
we were saying not necessarily.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, not necessarily, because once you have gotten the vaccine, our understanding is, you know, that you should be 85%, 90% protected. We all know somebody's gonna get it, even though they've had the vaccine, like they do with the flu every year, or we suspect. I shouldn't say we know anything, but we suspect that will present itself. So we're saying if you've had the vaccine, then you would be allowed those administrative days if you became ill with COVID. On the other hand, we believe that our understanding is, Jimmy, Braxton, correct me here if I'm wrong, that even if you've had the vaccine, if your spouse or your child has COVID, and then you're still required to quarantine, because you could bring it to work on your clothes, on what have you. So if you've had the vaccine, you would still be allowed those administrative days to quarantine. You would not be allowed those days if you had not had the vaccination. And our goal is not to make judgment against anyone who hasn't had the vaccination, but we do know that in order to get through this, we've got to have herd immunity, and that comes through vaccinations. So we do hope it encourages some people. We wanted to avoid getting to the point where we didn't have an employee policy in place. Vaccinations are offered, people don't take one, they get sick, 3 weeks later, have COVID, and we say, well, you'll have to take your sick time. They're like, well, if I'd known that, I'd have gotten the vaccination.
Right.
So that, you know, that's why we wanted to go ahead today and make this decision, so that as people are determining whether or not to get it, they are fully aware of what the consequences are either way.
And to further add to that, think about the school district with all the kids out. That is a big issue we're facing, is parents having to stay home with their kids who are on quarantine from school. So this runs into that. They'll have to use their sick leave if they choose not to get a shot to stay home with their kids from school.
So what Pope was saying about going back to it, though, it's kind of like right now we offer flu shots, just like this is being offered to them, and if they don't take the flu shot but they get the flu, then they got to take sick day. Correct?
If they choose not to come to work, then yes.
Okay,
We
Pope,
don't
I got one more
require them
question
to stay
for
at
you.
home for 14 days, which is different than COVID.
Yeah, very different.
Right. I do have one question, Pope, and I know that there was a lot of talk about this in the last COVID relief bill, and unfortunately it didn't pass, but what was liability relief? And, where does the city stand? Where are we going to be if somebody doesn't take the vaccine, but yet they contract COVID through some sort of city services? Can they ever have a stand against it?
John, I don't know the answer. I think the answer is really highly unlikely. I hate to say it out loud, but the truth is the element of proof is nearly impossible with a pandemic to prove that it comes from a source. Although I do think that we've got a duty to continue to do what we've been doing, which is to screen our employees and require them to report whenever they have symptoms, and if they do, to not allow them in public, make them work from home or make them go home. And I think we'll continue to do that even during the vaccination period. But beyond that, I don't know the answer, John.
And if we do require them to go home, if they are sick and they haven't had the vaccine and they they haven't reported it to us. Will they then just go home on leave without pay, or
If they
will
have sick leave, they will be
they will
allowed
be
to
required
use
to
their
use their
sick
sick
leave.
Just the same as anybody else always applies for the flu or anything else. The only, I don't know, maybe this is the wrong way to say it, but the only difference now is you're trying to incentivize people to take the vaccine. You're saying if you take the vaccine and you nevertheless get sick, in that case, we won't require you to use your sick days.
Yeah.
Right. We will require that you show us a positive COVID test in order
Yeah.
to get those administrative days. You can't have the stomach virus and say you had COVID
Right,
and take those days. I mean, so there would have to be
yeah.
a confirmation.
Mayor, there's
And-
some people who can't take the COVID vaccine, and they would be,
They would be exempt. We'd have a form
Okay.
they would have to fill
Yeah.
out to their doctor to
they
approve.
just need to bring something from their physician
There's-
saying that they can't.
There's a couple of
Okay.
classes, you could have both someone for religious reasons and someone under the ADA
Right.
who may not be able to because of a disability.
Yeah,
And at the same time,
So is there any way we can monetarily incentivize, legally, I mean, not a lot, but a little bit for people to take it?
Now, I believe that would be
No.
considered a
You can
bonus.
just require everyone, I mean, it's not, I mean, y'all are making policy decisions here, but, you know, you can't pay them or donate because you could require it otherwise.
and if you, as we're looking at that, if we're going to give them their off time to go home, if they have COVID, we also need to look at if they've got to stay home with their children in the same instance.
Oh, yeah.
If we're going that route.
Well, what I'm saying, stay home with their children. I mean, if their children are diagnosed,
Right.
is what I'm talking about. So then, therefore, they are required to quarantine. Now,
That's what I
if
meant.
at the Oxford High School, my understanding is today there are 2 full sports teams that have been sent home on quarantine, and they're both teams with a bunch of members. So most high school kids probably don't need to be well, actually, they probably do need to be babysat worse than 5-year-olds, but they, you know, if.
Positive
if-
test, I guess.
That's right, positive
Sorry.
test
Yes.
is what we're
If their
looking
child has
for,
a positive test or-
not just that you don't have daycare,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, but the not having daycare is an issue.
Oh,
we're
it's gonna be an
facing.
issue for sure,
Already is, yeah.
yeah, no doubt. But that's not what we're talking about, being able to be relieved if you've had the vaccination. We're talking about if you are required to quarantine or
But
be
currently,
home.
if they're home because their child is quarantined, we have been approving, because at first the CDC said to approve it, but now,
Okay, my understanding was that was no longer the case once we got to vaccination. So I think the board probably needs to clarify where y'all want to stand on that.
because we're still gonna have employees that are forced to stay home with their young kids.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
no doubt.
But what's the deal if an employee says they do not want to take the vaccine, and then their child,
We lose him?
John.
Still there, John?
no, I'm here, did y'all hear me?
There we are.
Your conversation dropped.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I said,
So-
what's the deal? No, what I said was, what's the deal if somebody chooses not to take the vaccine, but then their child gets COVID because he didn't take the vaccine either?
Then they are required to stay home if their child has COVID and quarantine, which is still the. Do what?
But we're not paying them?
Okay.
We would be requiring them to use their sick leave.
Yeah,
That's what I wanted to know. All right.
And
So basically,
no, we
the
can
way
change
this- the
that.
way
That's
this-
how we wrote it.
Just so I'm clear, the way this boils down, if you choose not to take the vaccine for any sort of COVID reason that you're off work, you're going to have to take your sick leave or your downtime or whatever. Correct?
Correct.
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 Okay, that's what I want to know. Okay.
I think if we're going there, I would almost go toward something like the school board has done. Even if we choose not to be vaccinated, or if it's mandatory or not, I think we should add some days to their sick leave somewhere down the line.
But they
If,
don't have to
either
take-
way, one way or the other.
Well, the way the school board has it written up, it automatically expires at the end of this school
Right,
year.
I'm not
We
saying
saw- we
forever.
saw a very big opportunity for that to be used for any reason. I mean, you've got additional days that expire, so we were fearing that we would have a whole lot of people that wanted to use those days before the expiration at the end of this school year is how theirs hits, and so we thought we might get ourselves into a real issue with employees taking extra sick days, that we'd be paying a ton of overtime to keep people in, was what was less appealing about that for us.
They'll still have their accrued sick leave left if they go on administrative leave.
That's correct.
I mean, that's the incentive to get vaccinated.
Yeah,
I mean, we're talking about how do you incentivize, you get vaccinated, then you stay home with COVID, or you have to stay home because your child has COVID, that's administrative leave.
Right,
that's right.
There's your incentive to get vaccinated.
it is.
It
You're
is for a
right.
lot of people, certainly. And I think,
Yeah,
you know, so- yeah,
Mayor, I think the right thing to do here is to give the employees the choice, and then if you take the vaccination, you get the administrative leave. So I'm gonna make that motion that we go with that plan.
okay, one thing I would like y'all to clarify for me is exactly what we just talked about. If it's just because of daycare, whether you've had the vaccination or have not had the vaccination, you know, when, you know, classrooms of kindergartners, I think, get quarantined if one of them has it because they don't wear masks in kindergarten. And I mean, if you have a kindergartner that can't go to school, a lot of people don't have a plan B, you know? So how do y'all feel about that?
I think the parents ought to be able to stay home and be on administrative leave. What else are they gonna do, Robin?
Yeah, I'm with you. I just, that was not, so they get to stay home on administrative leave whether they've had the vaccination or not. If it's a daycare issue. That's how we've been doing it right now. But I'm just asking, do you want to continue it that way, or is that?
No, I think,
So what you're saying though, by asking that question, Mayor, is we're differentiating daycare from the other
From
kids,
someone being
basically.
sick, right?
I think so.
Oh, you're saying that the daycare is just closed?
Well, if the daycare's closed, or if you've got children that are elementary school aged and their classroom gets quarantined because one kid had it. I mean, we've already been through that a lot with a lot of employees.
Yeah, and luckily our
Classrooms.
employees have not abused it.
No, our
Yeah.
employees have not abused it. But I want to be
But it does
clear on
happen.
what we're saying.
I
Yeah, it
still
happens.
think if they chose not to get the vaccine and it was available to them and they have to stay home with a child because their class is quarantined, I think they still need to use their sick leave.
I agree.
Okay. Because that's not what we've been doing right now. That's why I wanted to
Well,
be
The
clear.
vaccination's available now.
Now it is,
So we're
yeah.
talking about to incentivize as many people to take it as possible, because that's a benefit for taking it.
Right.
Is you get that administrative leave. You have a family member that's sick, you have to stay home for daycare, or you get sick.
Because if not,
I don't want to affect what y'all do here, but it is possible I will come back on Tuesday and tell you of this problem, and I don't know if it is or not, but if this can be looked at as, if you have a family sickness, a family illness that's covered under the FMLA, that because of a choice you made at work related to the vaccination, and let's take the disability or religion out, but just generally, that we can give you one level of FMLA leave if you make one choice and a different level of FMLA leave, paid versus unpaid. I'm sorry, I didn't understand exactly that issue when I was looking at the email, or I would research it. We can, and again, just y'all as a social policy, make the decision you want to make. I don't think we'll have a problem between now and next Tuesday, but I'm just
Well,
telling you.
we will, Pope. I'll tell you why. Because we expect that our first responders should be able to get these. The reason we called a special meeting is because we believe that it could be as early as Thursday when our first responders will be able to get these vaccinations. We believe that, and we have to give them an exact number now of how many people want to take them. But we believe that we need to say to the police department, fire department, environmental services, hey, know that if you don't, I want them to have all of the information up front, but we think that the vaccinations could be here as early as Thursday.
Now, I'm not telling you not to make that decision. What I'm saying is that we have people who make the decision one way, and they also have FMLA leave, and we've already got their pay. I doubt that's all gonna happen by Tuesday, the second half of the penalty application. If we have to roll that back, we can. Y'all make the decision you wanna make. I'm just,
The penalty side of it's
yeah,
not
the
gonna
penalty
happen.
side of it is,
Hope,
I don't know if there's gonna be cases on it, it just raises an issue in my mind.
you probably know a lot more about this than I do, but I have not heard the FMLA mentioned in relation to COVID policies at all, ever. It's like they shelved that and are
Well,
looking at different criteria.
Yes, you normally see Title VII in the ADA when you start looking at this, but if it is a severe illness, I don't think it means you can stay home with your mom because she might get sick.
Yeah.
I don't think that's FMLA, or I don't think, but there could be those cases where they didn't just get quarantined from school, they got sent home because of a severe illness, and you've got to take care of them. And we're going to tell you it's unpaid because you didn't get a vaccination, or
Yeah.
it's paid because it is. I'm not sure we can make that distinction, but I don't know that you can't pass the policy now, and if we have to
We
true
can
up
change it if
on-
we have to.
But sick leave
Yeah.
runs when you're under FMLA. Yeah, it runs concurrently. Yeah, they wouldn't change that, because they can still use their sick leave. It's just job protection, FMLA.
They could use their sick leave, but what you're saying is, one class of people gets paid for using and doesn't have to use their sick leave.
No,
And
that's
one
what
doesn't.
you're saying now.
One is paid sick leave and one is unpaid sick leave. That's the
I got you.
FMLA
Yeah,
distinction that I
Yeah.
don't know if we can make or not.
Okay, that makes sense. I get you.
But again, I would make the decision you want to make, and if we have to roll back that part of it later, since you could require
Is it something that
people to
we,
get a vaccination.
is it something that we could know by tomorrow? I believe it will affect people's decisions about whether or not they take this vaccination. I very much think it will affect their, both directions. I mean, I think that there will be people that will say, okay, I'm gonna take it, I guess. I was kinda on the fence. I don't really feel strongly either direction. But if it means I'm gonna get my days, then I better go in and take it, because I don't have that many sick days. And then there's
That's the incentive we want.
Yes.
it is, but if they took it because of that, and then we go, oh, false alarm. We're actually not doing that. I just feel like we should know it before they make their choice. Do y'all, or am I just being
No, I hear what you're saying.
overbearing?
Because they may have the opportunity tomorrow to start taking the vaccines.
Yeah.
They actually may have it today.
Today?
Yes,
We're on a wait and see
we
mode.
think
The
that we,
site just opened up to 65 and older, and Carson's 18 to 64 with underlying conditions.
okay.
Government released that, I think, this morning.
Yeah, we just had not seen it on the
Open it
website
up.
had not gone live. What do you think, Pope? How long does it take to determine that?
I can answer this by tomorrow morning, but again, I'd vote to do what it is you want to do, which is to incentivize people to
Yeah.
take it, and if you, but the motion should include, unless the mayor is told by noon tomorrow that the monetary administrative incentive can't remain.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I included that in my motion.
Okay, so then the motion is to go with option number 2 of our list, which reads vaccination by choice. If employees choose not to be vaccinated when the vaccination is available, he or she will be required to use their accrued leave to cover days required for quarantine as required by CDC. If the employee chooses to be vaccinated, administrative leave will be granted for any kind required quarantine as required by the CDC. And as Pope said, unless we are notified otherwise by tomorrow at noon. So Jason, that's your motion?
Yes, ma'am, that is.
And
All right. Go ahead, John.
I was just gonna say, and can we make sure the department heads, when they let their people know about this, they need to understand that these are per, this sick leave and everything is per CDC guidelines and not, well, I feel a lot better now, I can go back to work, that 5 days, they're not showing any symptoms. They got to stay home, they need
That's
to know
right.
that it's not like the flu, you just come back when you're feeling better.
Yeah. Yes. We will. So we have a motion. Is there a second?
Sorry.
All right, any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, is there something else?
Bart wants to discuss the priority list.
Yes, okay. All right. On your second page, you have departments by priority. We're not positive how many shots we will get initially. So you have a list there of priority by department. If you want to review those and see if you are okay with,
Need a motion on that, or is this
Yeah,
just?
yeah. Mayor, I would like to bring this up. Number 6 is transit and RSVP. I think that they need to be number 2 under our emergency services. Those folks are, and when the students come back, it's gonna be worse. They're in an enclosed bus, and they're probably more susceptible to getting the virus there than anybody else in the city.
And spreading.
And they're also transporting our RSVP people,
Right, right.
which could be,
When those students come back, they're gonna come from everywhere, so, I mean,
Okay.
I've been concerned about them all along, and I think it would be great to move them up if everybody else agrees.
I agree.
Well, you know, I was about to say before Janet said that, I was gonna say, I don't really think that the Board of Aldermen should be selecting priority people. I don't know if that's the way, but then after Janet said it, it makes complete sense, so I'm all for that. I mean, otherwise, I don't know, I don't necessarily know who should, but I'm not so sure we're the best ones for it.
And I think the rest of it looks fine. I think, you know, that's really, you folks here at City Hall probably know better than we do.
Absolutely. That's why
And
I'm
it
asking
is-
if we needed a motion.
well, I think it was just done basically after emergency services. It was by amount of public interaction right now. So I think that's the,
Perfect, yeah.
all right. So then everyone agrees that number 6, transit and RSVP, should be moved to number 2? Is everybody in agreement with that change?
Yes.
Okay, so could we have a motion to accept this department by priority with the one change?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, is there anything else that we need to decide? Bart, have I missed anything? All right, then we do not have anything for executive session to consider, so I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion made.
All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, this meeting's adjourned. Hey.